Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Art of MMA. I'm your host, Mike Ginn. Joined as always, I'm talking about professional kickboxer, glory vet, and professional wrestling connoisseur. Talking about the mechanic, Brandon Catino. Brandon, how are you this Tuesday?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. It's on a Tuesday. Glad to be with you.
That's how I felt last week when you cut me off with the Stone Cold thing. I just took your Tuesday thing right out from under you. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, Brandon. We're talking about Khabib and all that means for the lightweight title. We're going to be talking about one championship as well as some stuff going on in the UFC with call-outs, fighters dropping out, and all that good stuff. And then, of course, we'll break down UFC Vegas 22 and talk about UFC 260 as well. But before we get to that, Brandon, promo code Big Mouth is on above the screen. It's also in the banner below you. Save you 20% site-wide, artofmma.com/shop. You can, of course, see my Fighters First shirt. Brandon's rocking the logo tee. We got a lot of other cool stuff coming as well this week. I've already planned to launch a new Legacy Legendary shirt this week, so stay tuned for that. Pay attention to our social media. We are all over the place, always commenting. And, of course, as Brandon likes to say, make sure you like and subscribe. And I love to say leave a comment so we can jump in the conversation with you guys. But enough of that. You ready to get to the show, Brandon?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this week in MMA, we're talking about, obviously, the biggest news to come out. Khabib officially done. We kind of knew he was done anyway. He never hinted otherwise. You know, we always talk about promoters moving his lips. He's probably lying. Dana was trying everything he could to keep Khabib in the fold. I got to be honest, I'm not really sure why, because it's a bigger story if he does come back later on. But there's so many great fights in that top 10 right now in the 155-pound division in the UFC that you just open up a whole world of possibilities if it's not all these guys lining up to fight one. We're going to do a rant segment later and talking about double champions, but that's kind of the same situation, right? Like everybody's lining up to fight one guy. And if you got to wait, then there's all these fights that aren't happening. But now officially, Khabib has said he's completely done. Chandler versus Oliveira for the title at UFC 262 in Houston, Texas on May 15th. That's going to be another full crowd card. Both Houston and Florida are letting the crowds kind of go wild. And on a side note, evidently so is South Dakota now. I don't know if they're trying to angle for a UFC fight, but they did just pass legislation saying they could have crowds. What do you think about this matchup, Chandler versus Oliveira?
I mean, I guess it's the fight to make since Poirier didn't want the fight because he really wants his trilogy fight with Conor McGregor. He chose to sell his hot sauce. Yeah, and exactly, man. He chose red panty night over your championship fight night. That's what he wanted to do. So I'm cool with it. Oliveira definitely deserves to be in the mix. Mixed feelings on Chandler because he's only had one fight in the UFC. I mean, I know a lot of people wanted Gaethje, but Gaethje is coming off the loss. I think from Khabib still anyway. He hasn't fought since. So I mean, I was
about to say other than Poirier, all of them are coming off losses. So what can you do?
Yeah, exactly. So I can see why they do Chandler. I mean, I'm down for it. Like like I said, I'm down to see it. And it should be a good one on May 15th.
Yeah, they haven't announced anything else for that for the lightweight division for that card anyway. But I would love to see if they had a couple other eliminators on there. We know Tony Ferguson's fighting Darush, but I'd love to see Rafael Dos Anjos on that card. I'd love to see. I think it's too soon for Dan Hooker. He just finally got back with his family, but obviously this summer the blockbuster is going to be Poirier versus McGregor 3. Even though it hasn't been announced, we all kind of know what's happening. So that's kind of, I guess, this is what you're left with, and it's a pretty good choice because I'm looking forward to this fight. I just think with Oliveira's reach and length and his grappling, I don't think, and his improved boxing, let's be clear, he's improved stand-up. I don't think Chandler can get close enough, and I don't think if Chandler wrestles to the ground, I think he puts himself in a bad situation. So I just don't see how Chandler wins that fight personally. But when it gets closer, we will make our picks and probably be wrong, or the fight will get canceled, knock on some kind of wood, because almost every fight we're picking lately. I mean, Brandon, you had one fight this last weekend that counted? Yep. So that is that. Also on the Khabib news, who, like I said, he came out, said he's officially retired. Evidently Luke Rockhold says he's like angling to be like coach of the year now. He's offering his services around to people. You saw him cage side this weekend, kind of like talking back and forth with Kevin Holland, which is a story all into itself. But yeah, so Khabib, he's fully invested. I know he's also got his Eagle MMA that he's starting up over in Russia and everywhere. So Dagestan. So that's another thing he's doing. And then Chandler, for his benefit, the last thing I'll say on this subject, he thinks that he can do enough to get Khabib to want to come back. So I doubt that. I think if it's already been, 7-8 months since we've seen Khabib in the cage, 7 months. Mm-hmm. If he hasn't changed his mind yet, I don't think Michael Chandler is going to be the one to change his mind. But as anything, just like Conor, if you talk enough trash. One championship, Brandon. One championship is obviously making news because they're going to be finally following through on that TNT deal they signed a couple years ago with weekly events. On those weekly events, one of the first people you think of, obviously Mighty Mouse, but also Eddie Alvarez. Eddie's going to be fighting, I believe, on the 7th. Yeah, he's going to be fighting on the 7th against former title challenger Lapicus. The big thing out of this right now is Eddie's talking about how if he doesn't win a championship in one, that it's going to be considered a failure. Do you think he has to have a title to be considered a success over in one?
I mean, I kind of want to say with him, yes, because I want to say everywhere he's gone, he's won.
Been a champ.
He's won exactly. He's won the belt. UFC, Bellator, when he was on the regional scene. I think that's the thing. But also too, it's also too like I want to say his record hasn't been so well in one right now, so he's got to kind of get himself back on a winning streak.
I mean, he didn't leave the UFC on the best terms either. Obviously he had that big loss, but he's 1-1 now, coming off a win. He got the rear naked choke in his last fight, but obviously he ended the UFC losing that big fight to Poirier. So, he always has a lot to prove to himself, if not anything, because he's always been one of his harshest critics.
Yeah.
I don't think he needs it in a promotion like one, because even though I know they're going to get a lot of United States viewership coming after AEW every week on Wednesday nights, I don't think enough people, we were just talking about this off air. There's so much going on, right? Mm-hmm. PFL's coming back. One's coming back. Bellator's coming back. And the UFC is not stopping. There's a lot of news to cover on a weekly basis. I think one is the one that's always going to fall through the cracks because they're an Asian promotion and they're not here locally. And that's their intent too. They want the US audience, kind of like how New Japan Pro Wrestling does, right? Like They want the US audience, but they don't really want to run shows here, especially during the pandemic. So that's always going to be a challenge until they kind of get more of a global presence, I guess is the best way to put it, instead of just an Asian presence. So other one news, by the way, they also just signed Gordon Ryan, who's a world-class grappler, jiu-jitsu, the ADCC gold medalist. So that's a big get for their roster. And at the age of 46 years old, Sexyama is back. I know you got to be excited about that, right?
Hey, man.
Akiyama is coming back.
Exactly. Like, to me, I think I really want to say I feel like it's just for more eyeballs, like that's going to help their Asian market, especially in Japan and Korea, because I want to say that's what I think he is. He's Japanese, he's half Japanese, half Korean.
I think it actually helps one's TNT audience, because he's a former UFC fighter. He has name value in the United States because of his whole Sexyama gimmick. So Akiyama being on TV in the United States, I believe it's the April 29th card. So one of the last ones on the TNT series that they're doing. So, you obviously got Demetrius Johnson, you got Eddie Alvarez. Now you got another name that people can kind of attach themselves to. Obviously their women's division has gotten quite a bit of notoriety too, but I'm not sure how many of those fights are even going to be on the TNT cards. So I guess we shall see, but it's kind of exciting to, at least have a name you can kind of attach to, but always got to be kind of, this is a tough game at 46, especially in a lighter division. But, you know, he's always been in great shape. He's always been ready to go. So we shall see. In some UFC news, Cyril Gane, as he put it, accepts the dangerous challenge from Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis kind of in no man's territory. He had been calling out Overeem for a while. Overeem got cut. Who's he going to talk to? Obviously, the other guy with no fight lined up. They both fought around the same time. Yeah. So Cyril Gane, Derrick Lewis looks like a great matchup. They've accepted verbally. We'll see if the UFC makes it official. If those two guys bang it out, who do you think is going to come out on top?
Oh, man, that's such a – I mean, that's such a tough one. Like, of course, you know, you want to say Derrick Lewis because you know Derrick Lewis a little bit longer, so he kind of has that, that fandom. But to me, man, if you're looking at technique-wise, I want to say that Cyril Gane is the better striker, but Derrick Lewis, man, he got that one-hitter-quitter power. So
if Cyril fights like he fought last time where he tried to stay at distance and didn't really try to get in trouble, I think Derrick Lewis is going to catch him and put him to sleep. It's tough to say that to a fighter that's never lost, right? You don't know if Cyril Gane's chin can hold up to a Derrick Lewis, but not very many people can. It's not like the first time Blaydes has been put down. Blaydes got put down by Ngannou too. So, but Cyril Gane's never been put down despite being in trouble or despite being whatever. He's never been put down. So you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, just going off the last result where Cyril just kind of did what he had to do. It wasn't pretty. It was just kind of, he took Rosenstruck to the distance, won his fight. Whereas Derrick Lewis came out against Blaydes, patient, waited his time, and then put Blaydes to sleep.
Yeah.
I think Blaydes might have just woke up like last Wednesday. I don't know.
like I said, it'll be an interesting fight. But if that fight does happen, we'll definitely break it down and stuff like that, though.
And that is deadpanning. Brandon didn't even respond to my joke. Couple other quick notes, and then we'll get on to the fight announcements. Junior Dos Santos. I don't want to say he's bitter. I think he has actually just cause because that Cyril Gane fight, he definitely got caught behind the head. But in the heat of the moment, it kind of looked like it was behind the ear. It also looked like it could have been behind the head. And then also he did get hit behind the head as he was going down. So Junior is protesting not one, but his last two results. Now that he's no longer under the UFC banner, he's going directly and protesting those fights. Best case scenario, they could turn to no contest. Most likely, they're not going to be changed at all. He kind of protested the Cyril Gane result right away, and it kind of got brushed aside. He feels now that he's not in the UFC, he might get a better chance at a full hearing. But he also came out and said cutting him was cold and callous and that they just don't care. Now, I'm going to ask your opinion on it, but my opinion is that Junior Dos Santos hasn't looked like championship Junior Dos Santos in a long time. Even though he's gotten a win here and there, he's never been the same guy that, after those wars with Kane, how can you be the same guy? Those take a lot out of you. And Junior's been in war after war after war. But at some point, mid-30s, late 30s, you think he's like 37 or something like that?
Yeah, 37. He's 37.
At some point, the UFC's got to, they can't just keep paying you to lose, right? What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's like, I think he did have a good amount of fights left on his contract. But the thing was, though, I want to say, I felt like he's lost either it was like 3 or 4 in a row. Like he was on a losing streak, So usually if you lose 3 in a row, they do cut ties with you. But I think with him, they gave him a fourth fight to lose. So
also one thing, sorry to interrupt. One thing is that also he took like the last 2 fights also on short notice. So
yeah,
that's another thing why he was upset about the way he got cut.
Gotcha. And then also too, with the Cyril Gane fight, like I watched that fight. Like to me, my thing was, man, he turned away. You turn away. Sometimes you might get caught in the back of the head, but that's because you turned your head and you got caught.
That's what I said too when I first saw it. I guess in fairness, he lost 4 fights to championship level fighters, right? Except for the Rosenstruck, because Rosenstruck's been going down lately. But he lost to Ngannou, he lost to Blaydes, he lost to Rosenstruck, and he lost to Gane. And the last 2 he took on short notice, and he got knocked out. But he also got knocked out the other 2 as well. He's getting knocked out 4 straight times. And even though he beat Derrick Lewis back in 2019, that wasn't a pretty fight.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't like, and Derrick Lewis definitely got, after he lost that fight, is definitely like reinvested into himself. And then you look back, he lost to Stipe, Alistair, and Kane. So all his losses aren't bad losses. But at 37, what do you expect from Junior going forward? And that's what I think the UFC did. I think they cut him because how can you market a guy that's got knocked out 4 straight times? And at what point do you got to protect the fighter from himself if he's punch drunk? Now, I don't know Junior is. I mean, I very rarely ever hear him talk, but he always seems like you listen to Glover talk, Glover Teixeira, he almost sounds punch drunk, right? Junior never really sounds like that. He sounds like he got his stuff together, but you take that many knockouts. At some point, the UFC wants to cut its risk. One last piece of news. Brandon brought this to my attention recently. Good old Kenny Florian, ESPN MMA Live back in the day. He's obviously doing the Anik and Florian podcast all the time. He just signed on with PFL to be a color commentary. So I can't even talk. Color commentator. So that'll make the broadcast a little bit more intriguing. He's always known his stuff, and he actually inspired me to something we want to eventually do on our show, which is kind of do these training segments. They used to do it all the time in MMA Live. I thought they were like the best. So hopefully we can get that going some point soon. All right, Brandon, let's get to some fight announcements real quick. Obviously, the big news coming out of this weekend, T-City Volkanovski is off. Alexander, unfortunately, tested positive to COVID, so we wish him a speedy recovery. It sucks that it was this close to the fight because it just basically ruined the main card. I think they moved T. Woodley up to their co-main, but it definitely took a lot of steam out of the 2 title fights and everything we had going on there. So unfortunately for that, another fight change as well. Kevin Gastelum, it was announced right after our show last week, as most stuff is, like right after we go off the air. Here's some news. Kevin Gastelum's in for Paulo Costa against Robert Whittaker on that UFC main event on April 17th. It also got announced, and me and Brandon joked about this afterwards. So evidently Paulo Costa is still dealing with the after effects of COVID. I guess the flu is a part of that, is the way they were trying to explain it. I don't know why they just didn't come out and say that. I guess during COVID, he just kept training instead of just shutting down like he's supposed to, and made it worse. So I have a hard time, and I don't want to victim blame, but I have a hard time believing some of the stuff that Paulo says because he kind of talks out of both sides of his mouth most of the time. He didn't really want this Whittaker fight. And his camp is talking about other matchups now that Whittaker's moved on so quickly, like just like that. And I'm like, did you really want that Whittaker fight? So that's a big deal right now. And I think that maybe there's more questions than answers. And even though, unfortunately, he did have COVID and that was documented, I just feel like, it's unfair if you're coming off a sickness like that. But he does have a lot to prove, unfortunately. Another fight announcement, TJ Dillashaw is back. He's going to be fighting Corey Sandhagen May 8th. And that location is to be determined right now. May 22nd, another guy making his return, Cody Garbrandt. He's going to be fighting Rob Font. That fight's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that fight. And then in Bellator, Bellator is getting ready to make their run of shows starting in April. Liz Carmouche and Vanessa Porto have been set up for Bellator 256 at April 9th. And on that same card, making her second appearance in Bellator, Kat Zingano versus Olivia Parker. So the king of the lady fights over there. You got a couple more lady fights to watch over for Bellator. And that's also, I believe, the same card as Bader and Machida, I think, as well. Right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of their series of fight after fight. Yeah, I think it's that same card. I had it listed somewhere. Now it just disappeared on me. The things that happen when you go live. So that's our fight announcements. Obviously, we already announced that the Chandler Oliveira fight's taking place on May 15th. So that was the big fight change as well. And then everything else is kind of in. Also, real quick, Montana De La Rosa and Ariana Lipsky got scheduled for June 5th. I don't think we talked about that one. And then as a tribute to our guy Sergio, big fan and big friend with Bill Aggio, he's got a fight against Ricardo Ramos on April 17th. So rooting for Bill as well. You ready to move on to our brand new rant segment, Brandon?
Yes.
All right. So we were going to do this last week, but because of time, I didn't want to keep Brandon all day long. So we cut it out. And instead of just doing it me, like I did in the Gina Carano one where I just went nuts, feel free to go back a couple episodes and check out that one. If you want, I'll put the link in the show notes. It's been bothering me for a while. You know, how cool is it to say double champion, right? 2 belts. I'm the king or queen of 2 different things. And this kind of popped in my mind, Brandon, when we were talking about Amanda Nunes and basically the death of the 145-pound division.
Yeah.
But after watching this last weekend, we probably should bring it back for at least one fighter. But the death of the 145-pound division. But while Amanda is chasing that idea of defending both belts, right? And while she decided to defend the 145-pound belt again first, there's an entire 135-pound division that while she has beaten most of those fighters, obviously Pena wants her shot, obviously Ladd is hurt, but she's beaten most of those fighters. But all these fighters are lining up to fight one person in 2 divisions, which means people get left on the sidelines waiting while a champion gets to basically do what they want. We saw it with Daniel Cormier. He only defended his lightweight belt once before he eventually gave it up. While he was also doing his trilogy with Stipe, right? So then all of a sudden he had to give it up because he was just holding up an entire 205-pound division. So my thing is that I personally believe having double champions is bad. If you want to sit there and have a fight, like say the Adesanya versus Blachowicz fight that we just had, right? If you want to have that fight as a non-title fight, champion versus champion, okay, I can see that as a special event. But the moment you have a double champion means you're holding up 2 divisions. That means there's a lot of fighters, and there's already so many fighters in the world that are qualified to fight at a high level, let alone we just went down the lightweight division. How many people want to fight for that title? Imagine if one person was holding up 2 divisions like Conor was back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So that's my thing. My pro is that it's great for marketing. It's great to say, oh, here's Daniel Cormier with 2 belts. Here's Amanda Nunes. Here's Conor McGregor with 2 belts. But it's horrible for the actual fight game. What do you think?
Okay, so my thing is, to me, it depends on who the champion is. So you were talking about holding up divisions. Now, to me, with Amanda Nunes, she's not holding up any division because the thing is, 145 is so small. She'll fight anybody at 145, but then at 135, there is no clear-cut challenger. There's nobody there for her to fight yet because everybody that's already there, she's fought. The next person really probably would be either Aspen Ladd, which she's been injured, so she's not really in the mix yet, and then Julia Pena, who is trying to get the fight, but she's the 7th ranked fighter, and she's had an up and down. I think she's been like I think she's 2-2 in the last 4 fights.
The rematch with GDR.
Yeah. You know, so to me, there's nobody at 135 for her to fight, so that's why she can do it. Now going back to your Conor McGregor, when he was double champ, yeah, he was holding up because that dude wasn't trying to fight. He wasn't trying to be active. He was waiting, and he was only really trying to fight like once a year.
He was waiting for the big money fight.
Exactly. So that's why I say it depends on who it is. Because to me, there was nobody, like there were people for him to fight. He just wasn't trying to fight them, you know, and
then he went off and did boxing, which held it up even more until Khabib took the title.
Exactly. And he held it up more. And that's
why he never lost either title.
Yep. Exactly. He just been stripped because he wasn't trying to fight. He wasn't trying to defend those belts. So with Amanda Nunes, like I said, she is trying to defend those belts. So I'm saying, she already did 145. So now her next fight is going to be at 135, but who is there for her to fight? Now, you want to go on with Izzy, right? Izzy even said it when with his lead up to Blachowicz was based like, who is there for me to fight at 185? Because the person who he wanted to fight was Jared Cannonier, but Cannonier did not beat Whittaker. And it's just like, man, well, it's like, all right, dude, I just fought Whittaker. You know, that's why he really wasn't trying to really kind of go back down. Now, yes, us at fight fans, we're probably like, okay, Whittaker probably deserved it. But even too, Whittaker wasn't really trying to fight. I think when they wanted him to fight Izzy anyway, because he just had the birth of his kid, so he wanted to take some time as well.
That was kind of blown out of proportion by Dana too. Like Whittaker never said no. He just said he wanted like 2 or 3 extra weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Dana didn't want to wait.
Yeah, exactly. Because his baby was a his 4th child was about to come in. He wanted to spend some time. Us as fans and as hopefully as parents we can understand that. I don't know why Dana White couldn't, because I want to say he does have kids and stuff like that. But it is what it is.
I don't know if he does.
I think he has a son. I thought he had a son.
But I never really get too much in Dana's personal life.
Exactly. Oh well, man, that's just another conversation. But back to the double champ. But yeah, like I said, I just feel like it is now with Stipe and DC. Well, should I say with DC? He never really had the chance to really be a double champ, because once he defended that heavyweight strap, they had stripped him of his 205 belt. Like the only person who really was able to defend their titles was Amanda Nunes. Now in Bellator wise, I want to say it's the same thing with Pitbull. Now, yes, Pitbull is fighting at 145. He's the champ there, and he's also the champ at 155. But again, I don't think there's really anybody at 155 that Bellator is trying to put in a title fight for him. That's why I don't think they've kind of really been pushing for him. Now if you go to Bader now, Bader was heavyweight and light heavyweight. Now he was in that heavyweight tournament, but there were some challenges for him at light heavyweight. Now, yes, that fight did take a while, and he did finally defend it, and of course he lost it. But again, I think it just depends on who the champion is, and also too what's happening in that division, because there's plenty of times where, to me, there's a challenger in one division, but there isn't a challenger in another division yet. And some champions, like we talk about with Conor McGregor, he wasn't trying to fight anybody. While you do got people like Amanda Nunes, she's trying to fight. They had Bader, they got Pitbull in the tournament. That's on them, because they want to put their champion in their tournaments, with Bellator. So that's why that can kind of get a little messed up. But
yeah, my thing is just always like, if there's one guy or girl in control of 2 divisions, then they can only fight once or twice a year, like maybe 3 times if they're really active. There's not too many, Cowboy Cerrone or Angela Hills that go out there and fight, or Kevin Holland that fight 5 times in a year.
True.
So if they're only fighting once or twice in a year, that means they're only defending each belt once or twice in a year. And in this case, I think Amanda's defended the 145 belt twice and not defended the 135 belt in a while. I'd have to pull it up the exact date.
I think her last person at 135 would be GDR.
Yeah, and that was what, 2019?
Probably, yeah.
So,
but after GDR, who is there for her to challenge?
I think qualifications is definitely. I think qualifications is something, but at the same time, as a champion, you don't really get to pick who you fight. If you got to fight the same person again, you got to fight the same person again. It's not her fault she ran through the whole division. I agree. Yeah. But people like GDR who are waiting for a rematch, people like Holly Holm who are waiting for a rematch, Pena who wants a shot, whether it's somebody who deserves to fight Amanda is a totally different argument.
Yeah. Well, no. I was gonna say, like, I don't think Amanda Nunes is picking people. I think Amanda Nunes will fight whoever.
She fights whoever. She's a bad example.
But the thing is, though, is UFC, is the promotion, is Dana White, or the matchmaker, Sean Shelby McMaynard, are they trying to push somebody in to say, okay, Amanda, this is who you're fighting next at 135? Like, that's what I'm getting, guys. Like, I don't think they're bringing anybody up. They're not. They're like, that's why, to me, they're trying to have a whole bunch of fights at 135 to hopefully have a challenger emerge, and the fans will get behind and say, okay, we want to see this person.
I think they're building up Valentina as much as they can to eventually have like them meet at 135 for
a third time.
Fight. Yeah, because that's the only person that's really giving her a fit.
Yeah, and which is what I think they are doing. Hence why I think they're not pushing anybody at 135 for her to defend the belt. I think they're just gonna probably maybe let Valentina hopefully get another title defense, and then they'll say, okay, mega fight, 125, 135 champ. You guys meet at 135, because I'm sure Valentina will go up, no problem.
So real quick before we move on, thumbs up, thumbs down, double champion.
I'm thumbs up on it. Again, depending on who it is defending, because also too, if you look at ONE FC, they have a double champ, the 185 and 205 guy. What's his name? I want to say it's Andrew Lang, I think is how you say his name.
And of course, Angela Lee was for a while too, but
yeah, you know, like to me, it just depends on the promotion and what's happening in those divisions. Because if you have a champion, like say, like we talk about, like you're right, there aren't those many Cowboy Cerrones out there, you know, just keep fighting left and right. But to me though, if your division isn't really hopping with competitors, you can take a fight here, then you can take another fight there, you know.
So I'm all for super fights. Like super fights, champion versus champion, I think are fantastic. I think there's nothing better. Like, oh my God, the hype going into that Izzy versus Blachowicz fight was insane, right? Same thing with when Stipe stepped up. I mean, when Cormier stepped up to fight Stipe, right? Like the hype, it's great. It's fun. But I don't think the title has to be on the line. I think you can have these super fights without holding up two divisions, because if the other guy comes up to your division or comes down to your division and takes your belt, then you got a situation where, like Cormier, he had to give up the belt because he was more focused on having his trilogy. He fought Derrick Lewis, and then he had his trilogy, the rest of his trilogy with Stipe. You have Conor, who was more interested in going to fight Floyd Mayweather. You have Pitbull, who's now stuck in the tournament. So what's happening with his 155 belt? I just feel like there's only one person and there's not enough to go around, and maybe it's not fair to that person. But at the same time, as people in that division, I just don't think it's fair to them either, because they're fighting their asses off to try to get a shot, or in some cases, like the 135-pound women's division, another shot. That's what they're fighting for. They're not fighting for just to get a contract. They're trying to get that belt. So that's my 2 cents on that. That's our rant. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Brandon, you ready to move on to some fight results?
Yes.
You look like I sucked all the energy out of you.
Nah, yeah, I'm just got it.
Cut. No, I'm just kidding. No more cuts. We already did a couple. You don't know about that at home, but we did a couple. All right, let's talk about UFC Vegas 22. Main event, Derek Brunson, Kevin Holland. Of course, Max Griffin, Kenan Song, another co-main event fighter from that one. So some good stuff going on. Unfortunately, our fight picks, yours truly, I was 0-2. I took JP Bays. He got taken out. Wasn't a good night for the Bays family. His wife didn't fare much better. And then Brandon was 0-1 because his other two fights got canceled. I mean, we both had the Gillespie Pickett fight canceled. And then, Riddell fight canceled. I always think Brad Pickett for some reason. Riddell fight canceled. And then we only got to pick the main event, which we both took Kevin Holland, and we were wrong. So hopefully we can both get back on our winning trail this week. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and jump into that main event, Brandon. Kevin Holland, Derek Brunson. Dana White thinks Kevin Holland had a mental breakdown. I just think that's just how he fights. And in this case, it didn't work out for him because Derek Brunson wasn't having any of it. And he just kept taking him down. He didn't care if it was pretty. He almost got knocked out on his feet. I think I tweeted out at one point that if this was on their feet, Kevin Holland would have finished him already. But Derek Brunson's a vet, and he knows how to win fights. And he knocks people out too, but it doesn't have to be pretty. He can go to the ground and smother you. And that's what he did. Once he realized it worked, he just kept going. As I think he put it one point in one interview, he said, he kept showing me his hips. Yep. And he might get away with it in a lot of fights, but he didn't get away with it with me. And he doesn't think the talking had to do anything because he wasn't listening to it. He just kept trying to punch him in the mouth. So break down that fight from your perspective for me, boss.
Hey, man. Good fight by Brunson. I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually happy that he won. I wanted him to win, but I just thought with how Brunson has been on and off, and Holland was on a hot streak, I just kind of thought Holland would have kept this momentum, especially after beating somebody like Jacare. So I kind of thought the same thing would happen where like Jacare had took him down, and then Holland had still caught him. Like he popped him with a good shot. And then how he finished Jacare, I kind of thought the same thing would happen in the Brunson fight. But Brunson was smart because when he took him down, he just tucked his head. He just put his head basically on Holland's chest, kept it there, and he just threw his punches that way. That way he never sat up for Holland to get those hammer fists or anything like that, like how he did with Jacare.
I'm surprised Brunson didn't bust an eardrum though, because Kevin Holland kept smacking him with those open hand ear shots.
Yeah, he definitely was.
That had to wear on him. Kevin Holland was way busier on the bottom. Like he was hitting him with elbows and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Like I want to say I would like in my I want to say I felt like Kevin Holland's plans was to tire Brunson out. Like I really thought he was just trying to really kind of take him into the third, the fourth, the fifth round to get that finish, because it seemed like, I mean, like I said, I couldn't really hear everything, but it seemed like that was the plan, because even when he
heard quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, even when he went back to his corner, it seemed like, I think it was like maybe after the third round, I think he looked at his corner and they were saying like, okay, yeah, it's time, to like, put it on him now. So I think the plan was to get him tired, which Brunson was tired, and they even said it in commentary. But the thing was like, you just don't know if he still has the will to like, gut it through, which is what he did. But again, kudos to Brunson, man. Shout out to him for moving down to Sanford MMA, which seems like everybody's going to either Sanford or Fortis. And that's what he's been doing for his last 3 fights now. So
is he bringing his corner? Is he bringing his people from Carolina down though? Because I look like the people in his corner were still the same corner.
He had what's his name in his corner?
He still has his main coach, I think.
No, Henry Hoof was in his corner this past fight. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, I saw him.
But I think so. I want to say that he brings his main people from North Carolina down there still, but he just hangs out. Yeah, he mixes it up, because I think that was his thing. Was he really was training himself in North Carolina? It was just like him. It was just him and a couple of friends. That's how they would do it. But now he decided to kind of get more training partners, and be around more minds.
Well, I don't have much to add to that. I will say that, I think it's part of Kevin Holland's gimmick, right? Like he likes to like get inside his opponent's head. You heard him talking on there. You heard him talking to Khabib like between the rounds. I feel like if he listened to his corner more and less to Khabib, he might have actually had a chance in this fight, because I think Kevin Holland's problem isn't talent. I think the guy is so talented that he gets away with a lot of mistakes. And in this case, Brunson just took advantage because he's a vet.
Mm-hmm.
But when you, stand against the cage and just ignore your corner because you think you can do whatever you want, even the little things, like he drank the water himself. Like nobody was like, here's the water, here's this. He's like, I'll take it, I'll drink it when I want to drink it. Like there's nobody controlling his corner. There's nobody, like there's no structure to his corner between rounds, because they're so used to him going out and knocking somebody out or finishing a fight in the first couple rounds. Neither guy in that cage had been past the third round in their career. Brunson had been scheduled for 5 rounds, but never been past the third round. This is the first time Kevin Holland's been scheduled for 5 rounds. Never been past the third round. I don't think Kevin Holland's corner was structured enough to know what to do. At least not to rein in their fighter, to keep him controlled and say, okay, go. And by the 5th round, Kevin Holland was checked out. Listen to his corner, listen to everything. He was like, ain't nothing I can do. Nothing I can do. And so by the time he got taken down, he tried to get up the first time. By the time he got taken down the second time in the 5th round, he just laid there. He's like, I give up. He threw some elbows, threw some ear slaps. He's like, I'm done. And that's not what you see out of a UFC fighter that's trying to be the next big thing. Like you do everything in your power to try to get up. And if he holds you down, he holds you down. But you don't just lay there and take it with the triangle guard around his waist. Like you knew that he was doing that to prevent damage, which is another reason why Brunson kind of laid on him, because he couldn't move either. But it was a great defense, but it's not a good offense. So, I think he was hoping to catch Brunson with an elbow or something like that and rock him. And it just never worked that way, because Brunson's not stupid. He's a vet, and he didn't put himself in that situation. So let's talk fallout for that fight real quick before we move on. Kevin Holland, I think for all intents and purposes, this fight just broke his mental spirit, because he's talking about going down to 170 and fighting Bilal Muhammad now. Like, because they've been talking trash back and forth on social media. He's all about trying to, like, because he thinks the 185 guys are a little too big. He's been getting away with it. He thinks he doesn't know if he can do the weight cut to 170, but he's willing to try to make a more exciting fight, and something he doesn't have to worry about somebody laying on him with Muhammad, because Muhammad's going to try to knock him out too, even though Muhammad does have good wrestling. What do you think if that fight happens?
I'm down for it. Like, the thing was, I was talking with somebody on social media about Kevin Holland dropping down to 170. My thing was, when he came into the weigh-ins, for this fight, he came in weighing 183. So, I mean, he was well under the 185, the 185 limit. So that's why I'm thinking maybe 170 might be best for him. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, hey, if it's a fight with Bilal Muhammad, you know, I mean, he'll definitely have the reach. He'll definitely be taller than him. You know, we'll just have to like maybe the thing was just like saying it's one thing to get taken down, but it's another thing if maybe that person's just too heavy for you to really do something. So maybe guys at 170, yeah, he might get taken down. They might try to lay on him, but he can maybe muscle them and move around so because they're not as heavy as somebody who's fighting at 185 because those dudes at 185 are probably over 200 pounds anyway.
There's a lot of wrestlers at 170 too because I see like I was looking at the rankings. I mean, you look at somebody like Sean Brady who's down around close to the same ranking he is in different divisions. Sean Brady would just straight take him down and try to guillotine him out. Like,
but Sean Brady will take him down. But also Sean Brady will probably work his jiu-jitsu as well, which Kevin Holland will welcome because Kevin Holland is trained really under Travis Luger. You know, so I mean, he's down. He's down for the jiu-jitsu. It's just all about if it's a wrestler who just wants to just straight lay and pray or lay.
You know what fight I think would be really fun? This fight really fun. If he wants to move to 170, I'd love to see him and Neil Magny go at it.
Yeah, two tall guys. I can see it.
And if they want to move him up, because, you know, every time somebody moves divisions, they all of a sudden get put into a high-profile fight for whatever reason, like they deserve it. Michael Kise, that would be a fun fight as well with the length and just that length. And they both would be pretty similar as far as that. As far as Derek Brunson, he's kind of stuck in a waiting game now because they moved him up to number 4. He obviously wants to try to fight Costa or some of these. He's been calling out everybody in the top 5. What do you think is next for Brunson?
I mean, if they don't give him Paulo Costa, I say why not Jared Cannonier? I think that would be a good fight. You know, two guys that definitely want the title fight. But yeah, I just think that would be a banger.
I think if they're determined, so for one, I think having Kevin Gastelum against Whittaker messes up a lot of things because if Kevin Gastelum comes out and fights the way he did his last fight, and he pulls the upset over Robert Whittaker, then all of a sudden, I think Izzy now has to face Gastelum, which I know Izzy's still angling for Darren Till. I don't think Darren Till gets past Vettori personally, but there's a lot of like question marks. And I told you before after that Blachowicz fight, I think Kevin Gastelum gives Izzy the most problems because of his wrestling. What he showed that last fight with all those takedowns. I think Derek Brunson would give him a trouble the same way. Because I think Izzy's just a better version of Kevin Holland on his feet anyway. I think Kevin Holland does have really good jiu-jitsu. People just don't realize it. But I think you're starting to see some of these strikers, like they present their hips, as Derek Brunson said, and they just go through it. I think Paulo Costa makes the most sense right now since he's kind of out for a little while and he can rest up a few more months and Derek Brunson can rest a couple months. I don't know what's up with Cannonier because I think his stock is dropping, even though he kind of just sits there at 3. So
yeah, he just fought Whittaker. That was it. He hasn't fought since. So
yeah, I mean, Whittaker really like dominated that fight. So
yeah. So I mean, hey, I'll say why not do Brunson and Cannonier?
The co-main on that card was a fight that we didn't pick because it got moved up at the last second. We're talking about Max Payne Griffin versus Kenan Song. I actually on DraftKings picked Song because he had that vicious knockout last year, and he was on a run. But I knew Max Payne was favored. What'd you think of that fight?
Hey, man, good job by Max Griffin, man. Went out there, did what he was supposed to do. Then, of course, he got on the mic, and he said, Dana White, give me 50 G's, baby. And that's what happened. So kudos to Max Griffin. Hey, man, striking was on point. He rocked him, saw that he was rocked. He went for the kill once he had him up against the cage. I mean, you know, that last shot that he hit on him was a little extra, but hey, like they say, man, it's the ref's job to stop you. You just keep on going.
Same as Derek Lewis blades. You just go until the ref stops. Yeah,
exactly. So kudos to Max Griffin. I kind of been high on him. I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking about picking his fight last week, but I just didn't because you know me, I always try to go with the ladies. So that's what so that's exactly it did give me in trouble because I didn't have a fight except for the main event.
I didn't mean it that way. Yeah, I think he just did what he's supposed to do. I gotta admit, I wasn't a big fan Look, first of all, this is the fight game. You don't have to touch gloves. You don't have to be friends. I think there's a certain professionalism to it, in my personal opinion. So I wasn't and I'm also the guy who usually goes for the most arrogant athletes as my favorite athletes. I was a big Deion Sanders fan. I was a big Terrell Owens fan. But in this case, he didn't care about his opponent being knocked out. He was dancing, having fun. He didn't try to shake his hand after the fight. He didn't like any of that, right? Like he just was in his own world. And that's his right. I'm not judging him. It just didn't, it wasn't something I like to cheer for. Like me, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not shitting on him for it, but it really wasn't my cup of tea, to see something like that. So I think he could grow as professionally, but skills wise, I think the kid's going to definitely make some noise in the 170-pound division. But there's a murderer's row to go through, especially at the end of that 100 of the 10 through 15 rankings in 170. That's a tough crack. So he'll probably have to wait and see what's next for that. Kenan Song back to the drawing board, but I'm sure he'll get matched up with somebody that he can bang with, and that'll probably be a good fight.
I know Max Griffin, he asked for Jeff Neal, apparently the boys, and he's trying to get on that Houston card.
Yeah.
But if they don't give him Jeff Neal, which I probably don't see happening anyway, I can see Max Griffin versus what's his name? Michelle Pereira, who just fought Diego a while back.
Yeah, I can see that. Or maybe if you want to give him a ranked opponent, maybe I don't think Jing Lang is matched up with anybody right now.
Yeah, he's not matched up. Yeah, you could do that too, but I just think Max Griffin and Pereira again will be another banger, fireworks. Two dudes going out, action,
Real quick, as far as other fights that drew your attention.
I have to talk about the Cheyenne Baez fight. The reason being is because
Baez. I made that mistake a few times. I kept saying Baez too. It's Baez.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I got to talk about the fight. It's just because what happened in that fight the whole time with that headlock. The whole time I'm looking at the TV, I'm just saying headlocks are bad, and that is a move that I teach kids how to get out of headlocks. And I was like, man, what is this girl doing? And the thing was half the time she came close to getting out, but she just never finished it. I was like, okay, that's good. Now do this, and then she wouldn't do it, and then she would just get taken down again.
I'm glad you brought up that fight because how many times do we talk about though somebody who does one thing and they do it so good? We usually talk about with the guillotine or whatever, but Ruiz she was so good at using her weight. She's a smaller, stockier person than Baez. She was so good at using her. Yeah, she was good at using her stockiness and her size to Baez tried to angle out of it a few times, but she had her so locked in because she was also looking for that cross armbar into the key lock. So at this case, I think it was just somebody that did something so well, and Baez just kept letting her get in that position.
All I'm telling you, what Baez was doing was good, right? She had her hands locked around her body, which is one of the moves that we do teach the kids, right? You got the hands locked by this, and what she was supposed to do is, right, she was actually supposed to bridge up onto her right shoulder, basically pushing Ruiz's face towards the ground. Because when you do that, then of course Ruiz is like, well, no, I'm not gonna have my face go to the ground. She's gonna push back. Then when she pushes back, she just uses that momentum. She just rolls her over to the other side.
I saw her try it a couple times.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what I think she did it. I think she did it at the end of the second round, and then she did it again at base the end of the third round. And it's like, well, lady, if you know it worked at the end of the second round, why not do it sooner in the third round and wait to the end? That was just my only thing with that fight, which is lady, you're in the headlock. Headlocks are bad, and then boom. I just hit it because I had people comment about that fight on my Facebook page, and we were just talking about it, and I was like, yeah,
there was more explosions after that fight than there were during the fight.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
My thing is that Baez was clearly the more talented fighter. She had the more all-around game, definitely the better striking. But it's just one of those things, we talk about time and time again. When there's a fighter that does one thing really good, don't let them do that one thing, because if they do, there's nothing you can do. And for 3 rounds, I don't know which judge gave Baez 1 round. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. She lost all 3.
She got laid on for 3 rounds. And And she got punched in the face for 3 rounds. Like, it wasn't like hard punches, pitter patter, just a little tap, tap, tap. But you know what? I remember Roy Nelson famously won a fight one time because he just looked at the ref. He's like, he can't get out of this. I'm just going to keep doing it. And he was literally just tapping the dude until the ref stopped the fight because he knew there's nothing that could happen.
Yep.
If you have one thing that they can do really well, don't get stuck in that one thing. You know, we talk about it, Figueiredo and Perez. Perez was doing all this stuff, and he went into one position that he shouldn't have got, and then the fight was over. You know, if you got one thing, avoid that one thing, because it wasn't a secret what she was trying to do. That's why she kept the arms clasped, because she didn't get one rolled over in that arm lock. You know.
Yeah.
I think a little more training. I think Bays will be a really good fighter, but she definitely needs to work on. I think film study, like learning what not to do against an opponent. But it was a last-second replacement, so maybe she only knew a little bit. I don't know. That whole fight got put together with days' notice. So, anything else you want to talk about on that card before we move on and make our picks?
Yeah, just 2 things. One, I say that Ruiz should maybe fight Kay Hansen next. I think that'd be a good match. 2 wrestlers kind of going at it. I think that'd be good for her. And then
wasn't Bays supposed to fight Kay Hansen? Like Hansen dropped out?
I think so. I want to say yeah. That's why this fight got made up.
Or as I call her, 20K Kay Hansen.
Yeah,
from that guy that put the bet on.
So I think that'd be good. And then the last one is I gotta talk about the Yanez fight, man. That dude was on fire, man.
I was wrong.
You know? Huh?
I was wrong. Like, I saw how good Lopez looked against Burchak, and in the first few minutes, he looked that good against Yanez. But the dude has such patience, and he just picks his shots, and he throws so hard. I think there's a lot of flaws in Adrian Yanez's game. Like, if he goes up against a guy that throws leg kicks as flat-footed as he stands, I think he's going to have trouble. I think Lopez could have tried to wrestle him. I don't think he did that he did that against Burchak. He didn't do that against this time. Like, Sergio said when he fought Burchak that the reason he took that fight is because he knew in practice he got the best of Burchak because they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
But he also knew in practice that he could probably take Anthony down or get in grappling positions. He didn't know that against Yanez, so he didn't go for it. I think Lopez could have done a lot better in this fight, but I think Yanez is also the truth too. I'm not taking anything away from him. I just, as somebody that was kind of rooting against him, I guess is the best way to say, because I was rooting for Lopez, I saw what he could have done. But I think Yanez is still young, and he's got a ton of potential. Yeah. Trevin Giles, shout out to him too.
I just thought it was a good fight. Yeah. No, I just thought that was a good fight. That's all.
Yeah, Trevin Giles, big knockout. Big win. Not knockout, big win. Grant Dawson, big knockout. Came out in the 3rd round, got that knockout.
50Ks for that guy too.
Yeah, and Tuivasa back on the winning trail. That big knockout over a late replacement, Hunsucker. And I said this on Twitter. And I'll say it online too on this one. My wife asked me, because she heard the fight announcement, right, of Hunsucker. And she's like, in what country is Hunsucker a legitimate last name? And I was like, in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Because he's American.
Yeah.
I was dying when she said that. I was like, in Kentucky. I guess that's like a different country, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Kentucky. All right. You ready to go and make some picks?
Yeah, man. I got to bounce back.
All right. UFC 260 coming up this weekend. Obviously, we already lost our co-main event. No Volkanovski versus T-City. I'm going to throw it out there right now. I was picking T-City to be the and new, but we'll find out at a later date. Hopefully, Volkanovski gets healed up, no after effects of COVID, and he gets going soon. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it, Brandon. Stipe is actually the underdog. Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. Current rate odds right now has Ngannou as a -130 favorite over Stipe at +100. Who you got and why?
I've been thinking about this one for a while, but I'm going with Ngannou. And the reason why I'm picking Ngannou is I'm not picking him for his power. I'm not picking for his punching power or anything like that. The reason why I'm picking him is because, again, you know me, I'm always about who are you training with, who are your coaches, everything like that. And lately, he's been training with Kamaru Usman, which we all know, welterweight champion, good wrestling. He has a brother who's a heavyweight who's going to be in the PFL heavyweight tournament. So I want to say that he's been training with him. That way he's been, and also if you look at Ngannou, since that last fight with Stipe, he slimmed down. He's changed his body type. You know, he's a little slimmer. So I think he'll be a little lighter, which means that he's really been working on his conditioning. You know, been working on that cardio. And also too, well, from what I hear is that when he's been training, he's really been asking to do a lot of wrestling and jiu-jitsu. He really has been working on I'm sure he's still working on his striking, but he really has been looking forward to doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling. So I just think those recipes right there. And of course he has his knockout power. I think on Saturday, we're going to be saying, and new.
Who's he beaten?
Curtis Blades. He's a wrestler.
Curtis Blades. He bounced back after losing to Stipe, dominantly losing to Stipe. After losing in a bore fest to Derrick Lewis because neither guy wanted to engage. Mostly that was Ngannou's fault. Most experts agree with that.
It was Ngannou.
He came back and beat Blades. He then beat an injured Cain Velasquez, who was still fighting with a torn knee. He beat Dos Santos, who we just agree, maybe it might be time to go anyway. And then he went out, Mike Tyson-like, against Rosenstruck and just blitzcranked him, threw a bunch of punches, and one of them happened to land.
Yep.
If you do that to Stipe, he's not going to panic like Rosenstruck did. He's not going to get caught as like a deer in headlights. He's been there in the cage with him before, so he knows the power. You look at Stipe's face from the first fight. Stipe got hit. He got rocked early on, too. That's what made him start wrestling because he knew Francis could hurt him. And once he started wrestling, he realized for 5 rounds, I can make this guy look like a fool. Now, I've seen the training. I've seen Francis work on his wrestling. I've seen him working on his jiu-jitsu. I've seen him becoming more of an all-around fighter. But that's in training. We haven't seen him do that in the cage. We haven't seen him do that in actual fight. And I think you know way more than me, as a fighter, when you get in that actual real fight, a lot of times you go back to your bread and butter. Like, you may be learning all these new skills, but when the bell rings, the first thing you think is your natural, mindset. And Ngannou's mindset is always to try to knock you out. Stipe got caught by a blind punch from Daniel Cormier that first fight. He didn't see it coming, and Cormier caught him with a short hook that knocked him out. He looked for that the last 2 fights and beat Cormier easily both fights. Stipe was winning that first Cormier fight before he got knocked out. So, in my opinion, there's no way whatsoever that this fight goes any differently than the first fight because Stipe is too smart. He's definitely improved as well. Like, people talk about how much Ngannou's improved. Stipe's gotten better. Look at those last 2 Cormier fights. Stipe has gotten way better. His boxing has gotten better. His wrestling is always there that people forget about the fact that he can wrestle. And I think he's more grounded. I know this doesn't really matter much because if you're talented, you're talented. I think Stipe is just more mentally grounded. I don't think he lives and breathes fighting. I think it's something he's good at. And I think because of that, he still does shifts at the firehouse. I think Stipe is just more grounded. And if you want to go on another superstition note, his wife was pregnant the first time he fought Ngannou. His wife is pregnant now. He's getting ready to fight Ngannou. So I'm going with Stipe. That's just a long-winded way to make my pick. So me and Brandon will be opposite once again. We're both kind of hovering close to 500 right now. We're both trying to come out it. I'm 15-11 because Brandon's fight got canceled. He's 14-13. Brandon's trying to stay above water here. And I'm trying not to fall down and keep my lead dog status, as Jimmy Johnson would say on Fox. All right, co-main event. Who you got now? Tyron Woodley versus Vicente Luque. Who you got?
I'm a big Woodley fan, but on this fight, I got Luque. I just think Woodley is just downhill. I really want to say Woodley's done, man. Like, to me, when I see him fight, it just doesn't look like he's in it. It doesn't look like his heart's in it. He talks a big game, but then boom, you get into the fight, and it's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna chill here. Because to me, that Colby Covington fight showed me, because man, you talk so much about Colby Covington,
and then he came out and tried to touch gloves, and then just laid there.
Yeah, and then boom, right? The fight happening, bro. You did absolutely nothing. So to me, Vicente Luque, man, once he gets in there, man, he does damage to people. I can see him just busting up Tyron Woodley as well. Heck, he might even stop him. So I'm going with Luque for this one.
It's not often that a lower ranked fighter, Woodley's 7, Luque's 10. It's not often that a lower ranked fighter is the favorite in a fight. Obviously, it's also in the title fight as well. But Vicente Luque is a minus 270 favorite against plus 210 Tyron Woodley. I think even if he didn't break his rib that last fight, he was quitting on that fight. He wanted out of that cage. You can see it in a fighter's face. Tyron Woodley has put an amazing career, but since he lost to Usman, in the way he lost to Usman, he has not been the same fighter in his last couple fights. And at this point, I would rather see him, if he did somehow miraculously win this fight, and I'm picking Luque. I'll put that right out. My pick is Luque. We're on the same page on this one. If he somehow pulled out this fight, I think he should retire immediately. Just go out on a win. Because I don't see him beating Luque. I don't see him beating anybody in the top 15 right now. He may be able to outsmart some of the younger guys. But at this point, they're so much faster, so much stronger, and they have more heart. Tyron Woodley used to come out and be a killer. He used to want to, finish you. And then from that second Thompson fight until now, it just hasn't been the same guy. That Thompson fight, since then he started being careful. He started trying to protect his title. And I think he lost that hunger. Can he get it back in training? I'm sure he's not that old. He's what we say last time? 38?
I think he's 37 as well.
37, 38.
Maybe Junior Dos Santos.
Yeah, so, man, I just don't see any way. I'm taking Luque all day. I'm going to go ahead and make my fight pick first because Brandon always likes to steal mine, though I think I know where he's going this time. He's been trying to get this fight for a while, so I don't think we have to worry about it. But Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Thomas Almeida. I have been a big Thomas Almeida fan. He finally came back not too long ago in his last fight, and he lost, but he had a really tough opponent. He's plus 240 against the minus 310 Sugar Sean. I'm calling an upset alert. If you want to make some money this weekend, make a bet. Thomas Almeida throws a shit ton of leg kicks. Guess what took out Sean O'Malley last time? Chito Vera put that leg kick right on his nerve. What do you think Thomas Almeida is going to do? And I listen to Sugar Sean talk on his podcast. I listen to the things he says in the media. He still thinks he's undefeated. He literally has got his mind so warped. And yeah, I know it's a gimmick. I know it's like him playing mind games. But he really believes the shit he talks. Sugar Sean, if he doesn't change his game and adjust, he has the length, he has the power, he can put Almeida on his ass. But Almeida's not easily knocked out. And he's a veteran. I think Almeida picks him apart. I think Almeida does the same thing Vera did. And I think it's going to be an upset. And like I said, if you guys want to make some money, this is it. I think Thomas Almeida beats Sugar Sean. What do you think?
I'm actually in agreement with you. I think Almeida is to me personally, I really think Almeida is the better fighter anyway. But I do see I see Almeida taking it against O'Malley.
I mean, he fought a very tough Jonathan Martinez last time.
Yeah,
people don't know that. And then a couple years ago, Rob Font, who was on a tear, so yeah, he's lost 3 fights in a row. I kind of get the odds, but come on.
Yeah.
All right, what's your fight pick, buddy?
You know what it is, man. They were supposed to fight 2 weeks ago, but it didn't happen. I got to go with my girl Jillian Robertson, Savage over here over Miranda Maverick over here. So I'm going with Jillian Robertson. I mean, it could be a battle of the grapplers because that's usually kind of what they both are. I think Jillian likes submissions. I think Miranda's a wrestler. So which usually means it turns into a striking contest. I'm kind of really hoping that Jillian, still working with Dean Thomas, has got her hands right on this one. But I could maybe see Jillian getting a submission in the second round. But either way, I'm going. I got to go with Jillian on the W for this one.
I think the only way Miranda wins is on her feet. I think Jillian's got some of the best jiu-jitsu in the division. And Miranda fights her gym is called House of Muay Thai. There's a bunch of strikers. Yeah. She's a young strappy grappler, but she fights with strikers all the time, trains with strikers. So, and she's won I guess her last 2 fights by TKO or 1 TKO, 1 decision. Man, I can see that fight going either way. I really do. I mean, I'm glad I don't really have to pick it on your pick counts on this one. But I think if Jillian can get her on the ground, I think Jillian's going to win. That's kind of how I see that one. Anything else stand out to you on that card before we kind of get out of here?
Man, what other fight was I just looking at? Give me a second. Right.
Oh, and by the way, shout out to Anthony Burchak. His fight, he got us a fight on this card after he got bounced off the last one because his opponent dropped out. He'll be fighting Omar Morales this Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of interested to see if this Shane Young fight does happen, since he's representing City Kickboxing with the whole COVID protocol. So I'm not even sure if that fight's really going to happen or not, because I don't think they've pulled it yet. So
I don't see it on the card.
Oh, actually, you know what? There's another fight that I am interested in. Of course, you know me, got to go with the ladies again, because this is the person that you were ragging on.
Jessica Penne.
Jessica Penne. Yep.
I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm interested in that one too, because it's like, again, Jessica Penne hasn't fought in a while, and like Hannah Goldie, I know like a lot of people have been kind of hyping her up. So I'm kind of interested, because I don't think I've ever really seen her fight before. So I'm kind of interested to see how she looks, fighting.
Hannah Goldie's 5-1. Jessica Penne's coming off 3 or 4 losses in a row. Like, she looked bad before she got suspended for 2 years.
Yeah.
I get your argument when we talked about this a few weeks ago about how, well, she still was a UFC fighter when she got suspended, so she's still a UFC fighter now. I think once the suspension ended, Dana should have probably either released her back to Invicta or whatever. I don't think she deserves to be on the UFC. She is a veteran. She's fought for a very long time. She's fought like some of the toughest people, like Michelle Watterson. They had that famous war in Invicta. I think Goldie's going to run through her. I hope she does, just because, you're coming off a 2-year PED suspension as a female fighter. And then you're crying that your career might be over because you're taking off such a long layoff. Nobody told her to do what she did, So you kind of reap what you sow. That's my 2 cents on that. You good talking about this card? You done?
Yeah, I'm good, man. That's it.
All right. So now we can talk about football. The Giants signing Kenny Golladay and Adoree Jackson. I'm kidding. It is time to go home. Folks, thank you so much. Make sure you leave a comment below. Make sure you pay attention. Make sure you check out the promo code above. We'll be putting 20% off the site-wide this week only. So make sure you take advantage. Get some great merch. Support the show. Fighters First. He's got the Art of MMA logo tee. He got some other cool stuff like the legendary Bruce Lee tee on there as well. Way of the Fist, a really cool tee. MMA versus everybody. Just a lot of really cool stuff. So every time you buy something on the site, you support the show. So thank you so much. I do appreciate anybody and everybody that comes and watches our show, leaves a comment, and gets involved. For Brandon and myself, this is Art of MMA. See you next week.